Millions of voters in Massachusetts and more than a dozen other states had their say in a series of Republican and Democratic caucuses and primaries. Here, polls will close in a little less than an hour. GBH News' Alexi Cohan was at the polls today, speaking with voters this morning. And she joins me now, along with Axios Boston reporter Mike Deehan. Thank you. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Crystal.
So, Alexi, what's the word? Like, what was the overall vibe for folks? Because I imagine it's a little bit drizzly outside, and people who run campaigns are always nervous about that.
Yes, the weather always plays a factor in people getting out of their homes to the polls and just also engaging with someone like me who's asking them questions. But it's really funny. Something that I heard from a few people today when I asked them who they voted for and why, they were really kind of disappointed or disillusioned with the choices. They wish they had more choices. And then when I followed up and asked, well, how are you feeling about the November general? Do you feel enthusiastic? Do you feel excited? A lot of people said they were really enthusiastic and excited. So it's kind of interesting to see that kind of give and take where folks might be kind of disappointed with the options that they have, yet they're still really excited because it's an election, and at the end of the day, it's our civic duty, and you got to go out there and vote.
Absolutely. We have some sound here for with voters in Shrewsbury and in Somerville on their level of enthusiasm for the 2024 general election. Take a listen.
I want everybody to get out there, and whether you have to vote for Biden or against Trump, get out there and vote. I'm not enthusiastic at all because I don't like Trump and I don't like Biden. So I don't know if there's going to be a third party run or not. I may just have to hold my nose and vote. I am enthusiastic, more so because about what voting for Joe Biden would mean versus the alternatives. That would mean that we don't have a thief, a liar, and a criminal possibly being our president. This primary feels a little bit like a holiday illusion, but I want to always exercise my right to vote and place a vote for a choice, someone different than the two old guys that I feel like were inevitably going to end up at.
Now, Mike, I know that a lot of people, at least that's what I've been hearing, they hold their nose and vote, or that's what they expect to do.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing kind of throughout the country, and certainly here in Massachusetts. Just not a lot of enthusiasm for really what their choices are. Now, if you look at the Republican primary, Donald Trump still has a very solid grip on Republican voters in Massachusetts. This is also probably going to end up with a large chunk of those unenrolled voters, which, of course, make up well over 60% of voters in Massachusetts who are going to pull the Republican primary ballot. So there is some enthusiasm on the strictly partisan side of things. When you look at the Democratic side, there is very strong support for President Biden, but again, lacking that enthusiasm to see him go forward and go again. I think what you just saw of some of those voters that you spoke with is that it's really just about holding their nose. If they're not huge on Biden, that usually means that they certainly don't want Trump back in office. And this is playing out all across the country. Massachusetts is no counterexample at all.
Nikki Haley came to Boston or greater Boston area trying to get some of those unenrolled voters. Do you think that is giving folks a little bit more choice this time around?
Yeah, having Haley still in that Republican primary race certainly would be, a refreshing change rather than just having one candidate on the ballot to choose from, the former president. But Haley isn't really going to fare too much better here in Massachusetts than she did in New Hampshire a few weeks ago. The electorate's kind of the same, especially on the right side of things. But, if you're looking at where Haley's voters are coming from, who she was courting when she was in Massachusetts, it is that kind of old school, traditional Massachusetts Republican that we're seeing fewer and fewer of, either in elected office or active within the party.
Yeah, Alexi, I thought of the guy with the bike helmet and his choice of words about his choice at the ballot. I mean, do you find that it sort of runs the gamut depending on the type of voter that is going to the polls?
Yeah, it definitely runs the gamut. I mean, you saw that guy say that it was really important for him to accomplish this civic duty that we all have. And the gentleman, Preston, who said who's going to vote through his nose, he actually told me he voted for Haley. So I saw, a couple other Haley voters that mentioned that they were impressed with her leadership as ambassador and as governor, and that was kind of carrying them through on the vote. But regardless, that gentleman, again, Preston, said, well, hey, I know it's probably she's not going to be the nominee, but it still counts for me personally. I care to vote for her now.
What did you see when you were at the polls in terms of numbers? Because we know Secretary Galvin is expecting lower turnout than last year.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be lower turnout. Galvin has said he's expecting around 1 million voters in Massachusetts. That encompasses early voting, mail-in voting, and the folks who went out to the polls today. I went to Shrewsbury early this morning trying to catch that before-work crowd of voters. It was a slow trickle kind of in and out. Yeah, it wasn't anything like I've seen in elections prior where there sometimes is a line around the block.
Yeah, Mike, do you think that's going to have a factor at how people are sort of being swayed, or the numbers we're going to see later on or even tomorrow?
I don't know if it will impact the final result.
Yeah.
I don't think that Nikki Haley is going to do any better against Donald Trump in a low turnout election than she would have if it was a higher turnout election. That ratio probably won't change that much. But it's absolutely true that it's raining a little bit in most of the state. Early voting, there were good, solid numbers on that, but the Secretary of State, like you said, is still expecting pretty low turnout numbers. That's 1 million in Massachusetts this time compared to, I believe it was 1.7 million in 2016, 1.6 in 2020. So we're kind of seeing the diminishment of that enthusiasm as these same candidates seem to pop up on these ballots over and over again.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. Break it all down here tomorrow. Alexi, Cohan, Mike Deehan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.